heard, but also having been written letters, insulting letters where people are angry, that I don't understand why Home Affairs takes so long just to change an M on my surname or just to change my date of birth. It's not an easy process, especially when we don't have records at hand. You've got to go and see the original. This person may be changing something that has been there for over 60 years. And all of a sudden they want to change it. You can't just wake up and agree to change it, and I'll tell you why. Some people change it to run away from their identity because they are indebted to some institutions and they don't want to pay their debt. And if they get a new surname and a new number, they've escaped. Some actually are criminals who want to expunge their criminal records by acquiring new identities. So the Department of Home Affairs officials have to be careful and go to the archive to check what was originally there and what was happening. Why does it want to be changed? And that's where our time wasting, that's where the delay rather is. Deputy Minister Nzuza is running a very important program of helping grade 12 learners to apply for IDs in order to write matric. One of the documents required for this process is the unabridged birth certificate, and quite often there's a delay to complete the issuance of such IDs for the same reasons that I've mentioned above, of officials having to go and search through a mountain of manual records. Once these records are digitized, ladies and gentlemen, Home Affairs officials will have access to them at the click of a button and will be able to finalize the applications instantly. This will obviate people having to come to Home Affairs offices on multiple occasions. Part of the long queues in Home Affairs is that the same person has to come to the office again and again and again and again while they are looking for this record. So once they are digitized, it will be an instant job, and it will also help to deal with the issue of long queues in a way, in one way or the other. Grade 12 learners will also be able to spend more time studying and preparing for their exams instead of making several visits to Home Affairs offices. Now, I'm moving to the second issue that we called you here for. That is the issue of ensuring the security and integrity of our passports. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent months, the South African passport has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Firstly, on the 24th of March 2022, in our Krugersdorp office, the nation saw us apprehending a Pakistani national and arresting him with some South African citizens and also corrupt Home Affairs officials. All these people were working together to defraud the South African passport. And secondly, immediately after the arrest of this Pakistani national, the story of Lebogang from Bangladesh made headlines all over the media, including on social media. This angered a lot of South Africans, while some turned it into jokes. What people don't realize are the serious consequences and hardships that the country suffers when the passports are defrauded in this manner. The main hardship being that the integrity of the South African passport will be put into question, causing many hardships for South African travelers. Many of you might remember an airline somewhere in Europe which was even giving people a test in Afrikaans to test if they are South Africans because they were no longer trusting our passport. Of course, they apologized. It was a very wrong thing to do, but they were doing it because of these problems of the integrity of our passport. Now, it is for this reason that the Department of Home Affairs has to do something, because this state of affairs cannot be allowed to continue unabated. Today, we are announcing the first of 3 steps to be taken by the department to secure the integrity of our passport and make it foolproof for fraudulent acquisition. The other 2 steps will be announced in due course, but let me be accurate. One of the steps is an internal process. We won't be able to announce it because otherwise we'll be cheating. There will be fraudsters. So that one will be what we do in the office during application to make that we don't produce the laborants of Bangladesh of this world. The other step is a technology one, which when it's ready, we'll definitely announce it. So today we are announcing the first important step. People might have realized that when they apply for passports, they could collect them from any office, any Home Affairs office in the country. And they could also be collected by third parties. That means you may apply for a passport in any office, go to collect it in any other if you ask that it be transferred there, and you can send a third party to collect the passport on your behalf. Now, we are announcing today that unfortunately, this can no longer happen. And the following measures will be followed. 1, a passport can only be collected strictly from the office where it was applied for. If you decide to apply for a passport in a particular office, know that you are going to be forced to go back to the same office to collect it. Number 2, only the person who applied for the passport can come and collect it by activating it through a fingerprint. The passport will be printed, inactivated, and you will have to put your own fingerprint there in order to collect it. And when you put your fingerprint, they will have to compare your photo and your face, which they are looking at, and the fingerprint. They must match in the National Population Register. Remember, we've got your photo in the National Population Register if we give you a passport, because the National Population Register carries the details of South Africans. So we've got your photo there and your fingerprint. So when you come to collect this passport, the fingerprint and the photo and the face that is in front of this counter that the official would be looking at, they must all match. And then you can activate your passport. And by the way, this is not completely new. It is the method that is being used to collect smart ID cards. But we have just exempted passport collection from this method for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 being many travelers found themselves in a hurry to travel, and so we did not want to inconvenience them. The second reason, many of the travelers, especially in the business world and other big institutions, may not always have time to come to our offices, and so they send third parties to collect passports for them. Unfortunately, this privilege is now being taken away. Number 3, for minor children, their parents or guardians who help them to apply for the passport will be the only ones allowed to come and collect it and activate it using their own fingerprints. We must strongly warn that any passport collected using whatever method other than the ones that we're announcing today will not be activated, and hence such a passport will be of no use to the holder. We are aware that this will inconvenience some frequent travelers and some busy people who might not have time, but we are appealing that everybody has to be prepared to readily pay this price for the integrity of the South African passport. We also wish to advise passport holders to check for expiry date at least once a month, or for frequent travelers every fortnight. I need to pause and explain this. I get lots of phone calls. Lots of phone calls from many important people in the country who will tell you that, Minister, I have to attend the funeral in Botswana at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And they are phoning, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And I've just discovered my passport is expired. Please do something. I'm asking for an emergency passport. Please help, Minister. This is an emergency. I have to be there. And this goes on and on. Or there's a very important investment conference in London. If I'm not there, the country will lose investment, Minister. I discovered this morning. In fact, this one is better. People phone me while they are on the queue at the airport. They say, we've just discovered that the passport is expired. Or worse still, the airline official who has to process and stamp the passport discovers and said, no, sir or madam, this passport of yours is expired. And they phone you, say, Minister, can you talk to this lady? She's refusing me to go through. And I tell them, what am I going to tell that airline? You know, a passport is an international document. Even if I do some favors in whatever way I can, if I could, they're still going to arrest you wherever you arrive. So you can't go. Said, no, but I'm already on the queue. Minister, please, you mean our country can't do something about it? Now, these are the things we meet every day. Now, I wish to take this opportunity to dispel the myth of an emergency passport. There is nothing called an emergency passport for any South African who wish to travel to another country. The so-called emergency passport is actually a handwritten document that is available only to a South African who is stranded in another country and wishes to come home. Those can go to our embassies and they'll write them a handwritten document, and that's what people call an emergency passport. This document allows them only to arrive back home, and once they arrive, the usefulness of that document abruptly comes to an end. So I want to repeat, if you want to leave the country, there is nothing called an emergency passport. If you are stranded overseas, yes, you'll be written a document just to arrive safely back home. Once you arrive, that document no longer has any use to yourself or any other person. Now, so for any South African wishing to go to other countries, they have to apply for a passport using regular processes. We are, however, able to produce a passport in 5 to 13 days under certain circumstances. Let me repeat this. We can produce a passport in a period of 5 and 13 days. And I must emphasize that 90% of our passport were able to meet this standard. And we are very proud of it. And under certain circumstances, we may produce a passport within 24 hours. But I must warn that this is very rare. And if we have to do it, you are going to have to pay an arm and a leg for it to happen. Because certain processes must be stopped, and we pay attention to your passport only. If you really feel like your pocket is big enough, you want department to produce a passport within 24 hours, we won't promise, but if we happen to do it, you are going to pay an arm and a leg. You may also be aware that the department has rolled out the branch appointment booking system. The departments invite people wanting to apply for passport to use this option. This is to avoid long queues. You book it online and they tell you what time to come. And when you come at that time, you'll be served. The 115,000 people who have used this method since June when it was introduced can attest to the fact that, yes, they don't have to wait. So for passport holders who are very busy, please make this appointment to collect your passport. There will be no exception of sending a third party to collect it for you. But we also advise that people requiring passports can also use the partnership we have with the banks to apply and collect this travel document. Let me now move to the last issue, which is the shortest of them all. That is the reinstatement of transit visa for ordinary passport holders from Bangladesh and Pakistan. Today, I wish to announce that we have decided to withdraw the transit visa exemption, and we are reinstating transit visa requirements for Bangladeshi and Pakistani ordinary passport holders. And this started from the 1st of August 2022. This means that travelers using ordinary passport issued by Bangladesh and Pakistani authorities are required to apply for a visa when transiting through South Africa to other countries. The decision was informed by recent incidents wherein passengers from the two countries were caught attempting to enter South Africa illegally by sneaking in through fire hydrant passages at the airport while on the way to the transit launch to continue their trip to other countries. Maybe I need to explain. When you transit other countries to other countries through our airports, mostly they use OR Tambo International Airport, no transit visa was required because you are not coming to South Africa. And after you alight the aircraft, you are shepherded to the transit visa, where you'll continue from there to another country. And I'm sure you have seen, especially on the 9th of June, the 15th, how some of the travelers from the countries I've mentioned, on their way to the transit visa, escape and go through some passages of fire hydrants and enter South Africa illegally and disappear into the country. Some of them continue into the transit launch, travel to the neighboring country, and once they arrive there, they find a way to come into South Africa illegally through our land borders. So in so doing, they always evade immigration and other law enforcement officers at the port of entry, thus undermining the security and the sovereignty of the state. So unfortunately, we have got to ask them to apply for transit visas. The reintroduction of the transit visa is one of the practical and strong interventions we are making in our ongoing efforts to strengthen entry requirements at our airports. It also underscores our resolve to stop people from undermining our systems. Authorities of Bangladesh and the Republic of Pakistan have been informed of this decision through South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation. The decision has also been communicated to relevant stakeholders, including the National Department of Tourism, heads of South African missions, the airline industry, Tourism South Africa, and Home Affairs officials at the ports of entry to allow for adequate preparation on the part of airlines and visa issuing officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. There are three issues that were highlighted, outlined today. The digitization of over 350 million records and the employment of over 10,000 young people. It's a good story to tell in a country like ours where unemployment is so high. The passport security and reinstatement of transit visas. We would, in a normal world, appreciate if our questions would be confined to those three, because these are very critical announcements. But we're living in a world that is not real. It's got expectations and other things. But if we could really try and confine our questions here. If we have other questions, we will arrange another session outside of this, but we're not going to stop you, but we will appreciate if we could just try and even the related question be related to this. We will take your questions now, but the DG has directed that I also acknowledge on his behalf, Esther Kwane from the Department of Employment and Labour, our partner here, from the Presidency, Professor Adendorf in absentia, very instrumental in the project of digitization of paper records. So excited about this program. And then the Acting Director, Deputy Director General, Migration Services, Mr. Yusuf Simons, seated over there. We acknowledge you, sir. So let's take the questions now, colleagues, and let's try and make them brief so that we can allow the leadership to take them down. You will mention the name of your organization and your name as well for ease of reference. But also Ishmael will be taking questions, and I'll give an opportunity for those who are on digital platforms to be able to connect also as well, Minister. So I'm gonna start right over there, and then come. Let me start with the colleague just behind you, and then after her. You may go ahead, ma'am.
Morning, Ministers, stakeholders, and colleagues. I'm Mariska Pritchard from The Citizen, and I just want to find out with regards to digitizing the 350 million records. Do we software, and has it been tested already, and is it ready to be rolled out? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Minister, I'd like to know an update regarding those South Africans that actually sold their identity to foreign nationals for about 500. What happens to their status in the country? Are they to afford them an opportunity to get other identity documents, or how do you resolve that? And also related to the ZIM exemption payments, an update on the litigation, because we remember there were some challenges to the cancellation of this particular permit. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Fense. Let's see if we have another question. Okay, for now. Okay, we'll come back to. Okay, thank you. Minister, those two questions from the Citizen and the SABC.
Thank you very much. The questions from the citizens, whether we have got the technology and all that. The digitization of Home Affairs records is not a new thing. It's already happening. It's done by SARS. If you move to the, sorry, Stats SA, not SARS. My apologies. My apologies. It's done by Stats SA. If you go to Stats SA offices now, as I'm talking, you'll find a group of young people who are doing this. But unfortunately, because of resources, they are only able to digitize 5 million records per annum. Now you can imagine, if you have got 350 million records and you are able to do 5 million per annum, you can calculate the number of years. So we then decided that this is not going to help us, especially that the records are not static. They increase. I said this record starts from 1895. But every single day they increase. For instance, I can give you an example. Birth records increase by 1 million every year. So it's a moving target. Now, there's no way that Stats SA will be able to reach this target. So that's why we drew a plan, presented it to the presidency, that we need a once-off huge project of digitizing these records. And that's what these young people will be doing. I think that's the only question from citizen. Yes. SABC, what happens to the status of South African citizens who sell their ID documents? What is their status in the country? Perhaps I need to explain again how it's done. Because the manner in which it's done, the person doesn't even believe they are losing their identity. They become aware only later. Remember that the kingpin who was running this project, the kingpin from Pakistan, will recruit a certain number of Pakistani citizens who need these documents and recruit a similar number of South Africans. And they usually choose among young people who they think may not have a need to travel, have never traveled or may not have a need to travel at any other stage. Then they get a Home Affairs official who is corrupt enough to agree to be part of this. They go to that office of that Home Affairs official at night, the two sets of people, the number of foreign nationals and this equal number of South Africans. When they arrive, the South African is asked to apply for a passport. They are given a form and they are helped to fill that form, meaning their name, their ID number, and they put their fingerprint. When the time to take a photo arrives, they pushed that person aside, and the Pakistani or Bangladeshi or whoever foreign national who is involved in this scam comes in and take the photo. That's how Lebogang of Bangladesh was produced, because the name there was of Lebogang Ndlovu and the ID number was of Lebogang Ndlovu, but the picture belonged to somebody else. Now, the South African who does that think, what am I losing? I just write on a piece of paper. The ID I'm still having, remember they are not even asking for the physical ID. He's still having it. And they believe, oh no, but I'm safe. I just filled some form and I went home. Now they only discover one day when they go to the bank. Because the banks these days, and not only the banks and other institutions, they no longer look at the copy of the physical document you give them. No, they are connected to our national population register. So when you give them the number, they go into the computer to check whether what you are giving them or whether the person standing in front of them is the same picture as it appears in the national population register. That part is the part they don't know. And remember, the smart ID cards, your photo today is digitized. It's not like in the past where you go to some person who takes photos for you, cut them into 4 pieces and run in and all that. That's no longer happening. It's a digital photo. And what is the difference? When you take a digital photo, whether for a passport or for an ID, that photo must go into the NPR or the National Population Register. If you had any photo on the NPR, it gets wiped off completely and the new photo replaces it. Even me, if I go now and renew my passport and take a new digital photo, all the photos I've had in the National Population Register will be wiped off and replaced by this new one. Now imagine the new one not being yours. Yes, imagine the new one not being yours. It means in the National Population Register, your face has been wiped off and replaced by somebody's face. So when you go to the bank, they get into the National Population Register, that other face appears on the screen. But you are standing here in front of them and they are looking at you. And they know that, I mean, yes. And then they believe Home Affairs made a mistake. Then they tell you, go and tell Home Affairs to rectify this mistake. Of course, many of them then start realizing what they've done to themselves. But it's too late. One of the classical cases was for a lady who's a security officer. Security officers in the country are required to register with CIRA, the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority. You can't legally practice as a security officer if you are not registered as such. That is renewable. So this lady was one of those who did this photo thing. And yeah, and she went to CIRA to register. CIRA went into the National Population Register. This photo is different from this lady. And they said, well, sorry, ma'am, we can't save you. You are not what is here on the screen. Go to Home Affairs to rectify. And because she was wise enough, she knew what she did. She came to confess that this is what I did. I'm sorry. I never thought it will go up to this. Please forgive me because I'm going to lose my job. Of course, she was going to lose her job. For 500 rand, remember. because they pay them only 500 rand to give these details. So now at the moment they are on trial, but we can't disown them. They are South Africans. We can't disown them. All we'll do is to reverse what is in the National Population Register, put their original pictures, but charge them. That's why they are being charged now. You are aware that all of them are on bail. Those who are South Africans who have done this, we can't disown them, unfortunately. They are our citizens who were just outright extremely stupid. The ZEP, what is the progress? You are aware that there's a court case. There's a timetable that has been drawn by the judge president, deputy judge president of the High Court here in Tshwane, Northern Gauteng High Court. They've drawn a program of exchange of documents and all that. I think the trial is going to be somewhere in October. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let's take another round of questions. Let's go over there. Is there a question over there? I can't see. Okay. So let's take that question.
The DM has to leave.
Oh,
because
okay.
it's going to the NCOP
Okay.
on our behalf. I also have to go to the Portfolio Committee on Minerals, but let me finish the question.
Okay, let's allow the DM to leave.
My pen. I leave my pen. Oh. Thank you.
I'll take you over there, and then Zikona will come to you. Oh, and then SABC. In that order, 1, 2, 3. And then we'll go to digital media, Ismail, after the 3. Thank you.
From Eyewitness News.
Hi.
I've got two questions. The first, can we please just get an indication of the budget for the digitalization process? How much are we looking at? How much are we looking at spending? And then secondly, with regards to the ZEP, I know that there have been backlog issues with regards to waivers that have to be granted to Zimbabwean nationals by labor. Can we please get an indication of how we're looking? Last time, about a month ago, I'd heard of a 3,000 backlog of about 3,000 waiver applications. And are we making provision for Zimbabweans that have been blocked by this waiting for their waivers from labor? I've been made aware of Zimbabwean nationals that are struggling now because their documents that they've had to apply for are expiring, that they've applied for last year already, because there's delays on our side in terms of waivers. So can we just get an update on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zikona.
Zikona Chana from Newsroom Africa. Minister, you've announced that this will run over a 3-year period.
Excuse me, sorry, there was a disturbance. Can we start from the beginning? Who's speaking?
From the beginning, me or?
It's yourself, yes, Zikona.
Minister, it's Zikona Chana from
Zikona,
Newsroom
okay.
Africa. Yes, you've announced that this will run over a 3-year period. I just want to understand, when will people start seeing the bettered service? When will queues be reduced? How is it going to play out? Does the digitization automatically mean that visiting Home Affairs will be less stressful?
Thank you, Zikona. Orisan.
Thanks, Orisan Sitwana from the SABC News. Minister, during the Indizo in the West Rand of the Zamazamas over the weekend, Minister Begitele said is the only one who's taking the beating on over this, but other departments are also involved. What interventions is Home Affairs doing in this manner?
SABC, Orisan Sitwana. Thank you. Let's go digital. Ishmael, if you can just give us 1 or 2 questions, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. From the online, we have only one question, which is related to the media briefing. It's from Linda Enso, Business Day. Minister, what will the program cost over 3 years? Has this been budgeted for? That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The Minister will respond.
Yeah, the budget for digitization, it looks like a popular thing. I don't know why people will believe will be brave enough to stand here in front of you and announce a project that has not been budgeted for. This project was announced by the President on the 10th of February during the State of the Nation address. By that time, we have already drawn a business plan and submitted it to the Presidency and Treasury. We've already done that. By the time he announced it, it means the Minister of Finance had already agreed. But after the announcement, the Minister of Finance said, do not take this project any further until you find a letter written by the Minister of Finance to tell you how much money we are giving you. We received that letter last week. We received that letter last week stating that between now and the end of the financial year, they are giving us 500 million rand. So we do have that letter. That's why we are calling you here. We couldn't be careless, I mean, just to call you and say we are starting a project. And I've already told you the adverts are, the first adverts for Recruit 2000 are coming out tomorrow. How do we issue adverts if you don't have money? That will be grossly illegal. So we have got that money. But the total budget over a 3-year period will be 2.4 billion rand to do this job. Yes, but the first 500 million will end at the end of the financial year. That's why we did this calculation of phases. 2,000 now, then we'll take another later in October, and the others in January to spend this sum of 500 million. And I must state that, is it 8 or 90% of the money that goes for the salaries? Yes, for the stipend. Yes. Yes, 90% of this money is going towards paying the stipend. The other 10% is to buy equipment and logistics, etc. So it's a very big project to relieve unemployment, at least for the next 3 years. The issue of ZEP backlog. Now look, we are going to court on this issue. Rather, we are being taken to court. And I don't like sitting here and talking about something that is still in court. What I can tell you is that we have put together a team that is led by the former DG in the presidency, Dr. Lubisi. We put him together with a team of lawyers from the private sector who will sit every day to process these documents to make sure that we don't develop any backlog or we are not late. So that work is going on. I've addressed the team about 3 weeks ago. I spent an hour addressing them about what to do. They are very knowledgeable people. I've got confidence in them that they'll do this work. But unfortunately, I won't tell you beyond that because some of these issues may appear in court. Zikona, the issue of people starting to see the difference, yeah, it's a very big question. State SA has been on this project. Is it 5 years now? For this 5 million, nobody was seeing a difference, obviously because of the small number. But that's because of the budget that Home Affairs was having. It's not because State SA was unable to. We could only get enough money for them to digitize 5 million records. Now, this is we are doing a massive improvement by getting 10,000 people who are doing this work with this huge budget that Treasury has promised us. So we believe there will be some progress, but it's difficult for me to tell you when will you see a difference. But let me tell you where the difference will immediately be felt after digitization. It will be felt by a person who wants an unabridged birth certificate, those whose records have already been digitized, those who want unabridged marriage certificates, and those who want amendments and rectification. Once their records are digitized, they will feel the difference. The issue about visiting Home Affairs with long queues, it can't be resolved by digitization only. We're just mentioning it's one of the contributing factors. The other factors are many. One of them, the biggest one of them, is a system downtime of the systems that we acquire from CETA. If you read my budget speech this year, I outlined 13 methods which we are going to try to follow to use that, including the fact that CETA is renewing its network and is spending 400 million rand. And they promise us that they will finish in September. We are eagerly waiting to see when they finish. We also told you about the moving over to malls, and we are going to start in Menlyn Mall. That will start in September. We've also told you about these PABs, the appointment booking system, which we started in June, and 115,000 South Africans have already used it. Those 115,000 can tell you that they never had to queue. So I can't put a date, Zikona, and say, on this date, you'll no longer have problems, because the problems are multitude. We are dealing with them one by one. At some stage, you will notice it on your own. In other words, and I've said this to my officials, that when the public are satisfied about their visit to Home Affairs offices, it shouldn't be us saying it. We will hear from the public themselves that yes, the situation is improved. I'm not going to stand here and say, oh, hurrah, visiting Home Affairs is a very nice experience now. It's members of the public, it's the people who are using the services who will notice that and tell us. And this is not going to be an event, it will be gradual. Like the digitizing record, the 350 million will never be digitized in one day, as we said. It's going to take 3 years. And during that 3 years, there will be gradual improvement of whatever services people are getting. The issue of interventions in Krugerstop, unfortunately, I'm rushing there. I've got the presentation here to make to the portfolio committee. I can't make that presentation now about our intervention. It's quite long. They're expecting me to make it at 11:30. So please bear with me, but we are definitely intervening. Part of the reason why they found that the arrested people are illegal immigrants is because Home Affairs has to confirm it. Yes, there's nobody who was going to say these are illegal immigrants if Home Affairs officials didn't. We were there the very following day after the incident has happened. But you are aware that this year, we went to the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on the 1st of April and announced our APP, our annual performance plan. In that APP, we announced that the number of operations that Home Affairs immigration officers will conduct will be doubled from 250 to 500 per annum. That is the work of searching for people, especially in some companies where, because part of this problem is companies that illegally employ illegal people who have got no documentation whatsoever in order to exploit them. And we've already done a few arrests and done a few programs. So I'm going to outline there in Krugerstop in about 30 minutes time, if I will be able to arrive in that time, to present exactly what our intervention is. Thank you very much.
All right, colleagues, I think it's clear that the minister has to
No, you can take the last.
has to rush. So maybe we can take one or two last round. I'll take your hand at the back. Is there another hand that goes with that, so that we can then conclude? Okay, if we can just get your name and the organization you represent.
I wanted to perhaps ask if the minister could expand a bit more on how this process will essentially, what role it will play in the issue of the falsification of ID and passports. I may have missed it, but if you could just maybe sum that particular point. And also going back to the issue around e-visas, we know obviously the launching of that particular program in about 14 countries, I believe now. what's from the figures and consultations you've had with various departments, what's the contribution of that process in, ensuring an uptake in tourism and more visits into the country? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last question? Okay, so we're going to wrap up after this.
Yeah, let me start with the last question of e-visa. Remember that we started piloting this, or rather, the starting of the piloting of this coincided with COVID, with the beginning of COVID. And so it was delayed. International travel has just opened. So we can't really be able to give you the exact figures or whether there's any change because of the e-visa, because of the short space within which international travel, I'm sure you are aware, is taking up very slow, with some airlines having collapsed completely and not moving, etc. It is still something that we are watching. The issue, power news for falsification of ID and passports, how will digitization help? It will definitely contribute. There are many methods of falsification. It will contribute because, look, we do have people's records, as I said, and I'm repeating. The records, Home Affairs have the 350 million. They stretch back from 1895. That's a very long history. Even though, of course, I must confess, the ones of 18-something, etc., were only for white people, because black people were not deemed to be South Africans at that time. Maybe I must add that right. That is for white people, unfortunately. Blacks came in quite late. But anyway, we are all there now. Now, I want to answer your question by giving you an example. In 2020, there was a gentleman from Lesotho who wanted to take a smart card, and he argued strongly that he's a South African and started giving information in that regard. But in our records, we also have fingerprints. The Department of Home Affairs officials took it upon themselves to go and search in the records. And they found that the gentleman arrived in South Africa in 1980 to work in the mines. He came via Teba. And the fingerprint in those records in 1980 and the fingerprint now were matching, showing that he came in to work in the mines. And so he should have rather applied for naturalization if he wanted to, or permanent residency, not to turn himself into South African. That was fraud, and it was immediately discovered. Now, it took a long time because they had to go and check the records manually. Now, we are saying because there's digitization, it will be on the fingerprints. Secondly, for people who have committed a crime somewhere and they believe changing a few letters of their surname or a few numbers in their date of birth, it will make them escape. Because you'll be able to get this on your fingerprints, you'll be able to detect such things. But also, after digitization, we want to link electronically with other departments like police, justice. At the moment, we are not linked, so we are busy with another project. But I must also remind you, it's not one method you use when you are fighting this issue of falsification, fraud and all that. You can't use one method because the thugs use different methods. One of the things we are doing, which we are about to announce very soon, is the issue of moving from Hannis to ABIS. At the moment, all of you who have got IDs and passport, we have stored your biometrics on a system called Hannis, Home Affairs National Information System. That's where your biometrics are. And there are only two biometrics there. It's your fingerprint and your photo. Now, in this era of technology, I mean, to cheat on a photo and a fingerprint is very easy for some of these rascals who plan every day. So we say, no, this is an old system. Let's move to a new one, which is called ABIS, Automated Biometric Information System. ABIS has got 5 biometrics for one person, not 2. So in addition to the fingerprint and the photo, we're adding the iris, not Irish, eh? Iris is the thing, yeah, the dot in your eye. The iris recognition technique. Your iris is like your fingerprint, is yours and yours only. When you look into your eye, we know this eye belongs to Aaron Motsoaledi, not to Tommy Makode, or not to Bongi Gwala. That's the iris recognition. The AB system also have got a facial recognition, which means the Leborang of this world will stop existing. It can recognize your face, that this face belongs to so and so, and this fingerprint also belongs to so and so, and they must be meshed together. But we are also going to put a palm print as an additional measure, or a heel print for newborn babies. Police quite often get frustrated when they go to a crime scene to take fingerprints. They find fingerprints of young children who don't have IDs. The thugs use them, send young children to pick up, because they know that we don't have their database on the ID. So one of the things we are doing, which act is already far advanced, it has already gone through cabinet, DG. Yes, that we are going to change the act and let people take IDs at the age of 10, not 16 anymore. So that we have got your fingerprint very early on. And if by the time you are 12 or so, the thugs send you to go and steal, your fingerprint will be found in the database. So it's lots and lots of methods. It's not only one method of digitization only. Digitization is a facilitation method. It makes things quite easier. It makes access to records quite fast, so that we serve you and get an answer much quicker than we are doing now. At the moment, it can take up to 6 months before we arrive at your records, while you keep on going to Home Affairs and they keep on hoping they'll find your records. And some of them, by the way, are fading off because they are handwritten. They are fading off, and very soon, after searching for that number of months, you find the record and it's too faint for you to read anything. It doesn't help you. That's why the digitization project is a very important and urgent one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thanks for coming through. Much appreciated. The press briefing adjourns. Sorry, colleagues. I know that the colleagues from Nigerian TV and who else wanted a one-on-one? Let's facilitate that quickly. Yes, SABC. Okay. Thank you very much. We will arrange just outside here. Yeah, true.
Yeah, can they be quick?
Okay. Just thinking.
I don't know. I'm in their head.
Sorry, you know what I wanted to know? When is the passport collection?
What? Channels. Oh, I see.